This is part 4 on chapter 13, and we're looking at microbe and human interactions. So far we've looked at the normal flora in humans, so how some microbes are really important or beneficial to us. We've also looked at how diseases progress and how microorganisms can cause harm to humans or other animals. This little section we're going to look at epidemiology. So epidemiology, it's just a study where we look at the frequency, we look at the distribution of different diseases throughout the United States or throughout the world. They also look at health-related factors in human populations and how to cut down on diseases. They look at vaccinations, how many people have been vaccinated. So anything looking at diseases and how we can help to control diseases in different populations throughout the world. So epidemiology, they do a few different things. So they do a lot of surveillance, which is basically they collect data from hospitals and clinics. They analyze the data and then they create reports based on the data. And they create reports looking at the rates of occurrence, the rate of mortality, the rate of morbidity, how infections are transmitted between people, trying to understand the diseases and where they're showing up, where they're occurring, how they're being passed on from person to person. There's some instances where there's reportable or notifiable diseases that have to be reported to certain authorities. In the United States, we have the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, or the CDC, and it's based out of Atlanta, Georgia. This is the government agency responsible for keeping track of infectious diseases in the United States. In the world, it's the WHO, the World Health Organization, is responsible for looking at infectious diseases in the whole world. And the CDC and the WHO, they also work together with each other. So these different organizations and people that work in epidemiology, they look at a few different things. So they look at the prevalence of a disease, so that's the total number of existing cases with respect to the entire population that they're looking at. And this is usually represented by a percentage of the population. So saying at this point in time, maybe 1% of the population has influenza in Kansas, for example. They also look at what's called the incidence. This is measuring the number of new cases over a certain time period compared to just the general healthy population. So prevalence is the total number of cases. Incidence is the number of new cases that show up within that week. The mortality rate, that's the total number of deaths in the population due to a certain disease. Morbidity rate is the number of people afflicted with a certain disease at a certain time. Here's an example of some of the data that has come out of the CDC. So this is infections from a certain strain of Salmonella, and it's looking at the date that the person started the illness, so the date of illness onset. So at the bottom they're looking at time, so this is from 2008, 2009, and then the histogram, the bars represent the number of people that have that illness during that period of time. So Salmonella, we see that there is an outbreak suddenly. So normally there's only a few cases of Salmonella in the population, but then we suddenly have an increase in the number of people that have this illness due to the Salmonella. Here's some more data from the CDC. So besides just looking at the number of new cases over time, you can also group different diseases based on age and sex. So at the top we have different age groups going across the bottom, and then males in blue, females in the purple, number of cases per 1,000 people. So you can get more specific in the type of data that you're going to graph and how you're going to present it. You can also do it in the other graph. It's based on the race or ethnicity of the individual that in this case has tuberculosis in 2008. So there's a lot of different ways that the CDC can present the data that they have collected. So there's different patterns of infectious diseases. And this is what these government agencies look at as well. So an endemic disease is a disease that exhibits a relatively steady frequency over a long period of time in a specific location. So endemic diseases, they're always in that area just due to the climate or due to the type of animals that live in that area. So in this picture at the top on the right, we have an endemic occurrence. So valley fever is an endemic disease found in the southwest United States. So it's always present there at kind of the same frequency. We can also have sporadic diseases. So this is just when cases pop up at irregular intervals in different parts of the area that you're looking at. So in this case, we have measles. So we have little isolated cases of measles, but they're kind of just all over the place in the U.S. right here. Some diseases are considered to be epidemic. This is when a disease in a certain area is increasing beyond what is just the normal amount. So in the epidemic example here, we have syphilis, which is a sexually transmitted disease, and you can see that in very large cities, so there's like Chicago, New York, you have these outbreaks or these epidemics of the disease. So it's not throughout the whole U.S., it's not at a normal rate, they're just kind of showing up every once in a while. Pandemic is when these epidemic diseases go to other parts of the world. So pandemics, these are the ones that we're really concerned about, the ones that the WHO takes an interest in. So for example, AIDS, which originated out of Africa, has now spread to all the different continents, so it's considered to be a pandemic.